know you are going to be inspired by something that you hear today in this episode. And I want to invite you right now to decide that you're going to do more than just listen to this. You are going to take some action once you're done to move your life forward. Because after all, we can listen to lots of great things, but if we don't take time to make the changes, then what good does it to us? So know that at the end of this, I'm going to be asking you, what's some little micro commitment you can make to move your life forward, to live more like you want to live, and to be the person that Christ needs you to be? Because after all, here at Christ-Centered Coaches, that's what we are here to do, is to help you move from where you are to where Christ needs you to be.
Welcome to Christ-Centered Coaches Podcast. I'm Coach Katie, and today I am interviewing Coach Kathryn. So thank you so much for being here, Kathryn. I'm excited to talk with you and get to know you a little bit better today.
I'm excited also.
Well, Kathryn, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a Christ-Centered Coach? What does that look like for you?
It's actually really interesting. I took a BYU class on coaching with Tammy, and I took it actually as an elective. I just needed another elective to get my bachelor's, and it wasn't anything that I had planned on doing. It was just going to be a fun class. I heard that she's a great teacher, and I just did it. I was planning on going into counseling, and I'm not really sold on counseling. It hasn't been a good fit for me. And so I was just looking for something different. And first class, Tammy was able to help someone, guide them through something that they'd been working through for 3 years. Within 15 minutes, she had a completely different mindset. And I loved how positive it was. And there was no digging in the mud of the past. It was just all pleasant and looking forward to what the possibilities were. And that person went from completely adamantly not wanting to do something to, okay, I'll do that. I'll do it in the next 15 minutes. And that was life-changing for me. I was so thrilled for that person, and I was sold immediately. So
I love that. That's so beautiful. Coaching really can be such a powerful, powerful tool.
it
So I love that
absolutely.
example.
So then I went on to getting certified, and now I've been coaching for a little bit.
Congratulations. That's super
Thank
exciting.
you.
So, Kathryn, do you have a particular niche that you coach? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, the fun thing about niches are they can change quite a bit as you find your clientele and who you connect with. That changes quite frequently for me. What I've found is my niche is I love helping people with improvement. And so self-improvement is really my niche. Mostly I work with women. I have worked with a few men, but mostly I work with women who are about in their 30s to 40s. Usually they have a career and a few children. They're just looking to improve their situation. Often they're overscheduled and just trying to figure out how to go through life and make it a more pleasant experience.
So what led you to choose that particular niche? You said it can kind of change. So did it start there, or is that just where you're at right
It
now?
didn't. I really wanted to work with moms and their little children that are just overwhelmed, and helping them get a better mindset to help their families be happier. And I have worked with some of that kind of clientele. And I have worked more with people who are transitioning from either college to the workforce or from the workforce to a different kind of job, or retirement, into retirement, and families that are starting to empty nest and trying to work with adult children and how that is different than working with children that have been in your home.
Mm,
It's mostly more transitional, but they're all trying to just be better people. And I love the transformation that comes from coaching.
yeah. I love that. I hadn't thought about that as a niche before, as like helping people through transitions, but I think that that's super powerful. And I'm just thinking of a few different transitions in my own life where I think life coaching would have been really beneficial, especially like coming home from a mission,
Right.
graduating from college, even just graduating from high school and being like trying to be an adult even though I still felt like a baby, like as a legal adult, right?
Right.
So I think that's super powerful just to help people through those transitional periods.
Transitions are so big, and there are so many in our lives that we go through. Um, and a lot of my friends right now are going through the transition of having children at home and then not. And that's a huge change in people's lives and
Yeah.
how they treat their children when they're in their home and trying to give them as much education towards life as they can while they're in their home, and then
Mhm.
backing off and trying to just be there when the child needs them instead of inputting themselves into their lives. It's quite a challenge for
Yeah.
us older adults.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you are offering that service to people. I think that that's really powerful.
Thank you.
So, Catherine, we already kind of talked about what clients you primarily
Right.
serve, but what is your coaching business called?
It's Beacon of Life, Beacon of Hope Life Coaching. And I love the hope in it because we all have hope if we look towards Christ. So the symbol that I have is a lighthouse with kind of rough water around it because life can be kind of rough. And so as we look to the beacon or the lighthouse, Christ, then our life is always better. And so I just feel like that's very symbolic of how we coach.
I love that. I remember in class when you shared that and you showed your visual, I thought that was really, really powerful. Really powerful.
Thank you.
Okay, so next question I have for you is how does your faith influence the way that you coach?
Kind of a lot. Since I was very young, had a really strong faith and knowledge of Christ. When I was 5, my family was Episcopalian, and my grandma was horrified to hear from the youth pastor that I had corrected him on how Christ was. That went over really well. Not at all, like a lead brick. And he was saying how his vision of Christ was, and I was like, "No." And at 5, I didn't have many filters, and so I didn't sugarcoat it. I was like, "No, you're wrong." And so I've always had just a really strong sense of who Christ is
Mm,
as long as I can remember. And so I bring Christ into my sessions. I always pray before I have a session. I meditate and I ask my clients if they want to pray at the beginning and end of the session. If they do not, that I am very flexible with their beliefs. Just because my beliefs are what they are does not mean I'm trying to interfere with their thoughts and the way that they see Christ. I'm
mhm.
not 5 anymore. Um, but I try to also have them invite him in whatever capacity they have for Christ.
So are there any scriptures or spiritual principles that you frequently lean on in your coaching sessions, Catherine?
Yes. I absolutely love, um the verse, it's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And a lot of people know this scripture. They may not know where it is, but a lot of them know it. It's trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. And that's really an important way that I feel we show up as coaches. It's not about me. It's not what I know. It's what the person is showing and how they're showing up and what they need. Because if I come up with the solutions, then they may not be good for the person that is sitting before me. But if they come up with the solutions, they'll always be perfect for that person.
Yeah. Something my mom says is that people don't argue with themselves. And she she uses that when I say something that may be what she thinks is wise. She's like, "You need to go write that down so that in the future when you change your mind, you won't argue with yourself."
I love it. She's a wise woman.
She is. She is. So how do you help clients invite God into their personal growth or relationship challenges, whether they have a faith in God or whether they don't?
Right. So I feel that one of the ways that we celebrate God is through gratitude and service. And so, specifically through gratitude, but also through service, kind of brings me to another scripture. So, DNC 78:19, he that receiveth all things with thankfulness shall be made glorious.
Mm.
And it's the way I like to live my life. And I ask my clients to either commit to a service or gratitude at the end of our sessions so that they can also feel that joy in either the service or gratitude that they choose, because it always brings joy. I've never had somebody come back and say, my gratitude, it just was horrible this week. I've never had that happen. And so I just feel like that's a wonderful way to end our sessions. And then when we check in the middle of the week, then we also talk about their service or gratitude.
I love that. I love that. So for you, what does it look like to discern God's voice when coaching or when being coached?
Right. To me, God is so important, and I can feel him just wrap his arms around our sessions when we ask him to come into our sessions. And so that's why prayer for me is very important. And so if I'm listening to the Lord, then it will be a successful session, even if it seems to derail.
Mhm.
Always the client's like, that was perfect. That's exactly what I needed. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how that was, but because it's through the Lord and it's not me, then it always works out. So I try
Yeah.
really hard to bring God's voice into our sessions, um, through the prayer. And then also just as we go through, sometimes the visualizations bring us to God and preparing them more to be in a place where they can listen to God and be still. So I think that and then just preparing myself to be a better conduit every time.
Mm.
The Spirit is also just a way that I bring him in.
I love how you phrase that, to prepare myself to be a better conduit. I think that that is a huge part of what a successful coaching session, coaching relationship is. My preparation as the coach, your preparation as the coach. That if I'm not spiritually prepared, it's going to be really hard for me or for the session to go well. And like you were saying, I do think that sometimes God just takes the wheel and is like, well, even though you're not prepared, I am, and I can just make this work. And the client still has a positive experience. But I love what you said, just to prepare yourself to be a conduit for the
Yeah,
Lord. And I think that that's something that as Christ-centered coaches, Tammy encourages us to take really seriously.
absolutely.
And I find the better I am with God, the better terms I'm on with God, the more I'm communicating with Him, the better all my relationships go, including my coaching relationships. I love
Absolutely.
that.
It's not always easy, but it is for me, I feel it's very important. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. So, Catherine, many of our listeners want stronger relationships, and that's a lot of the reason why people look for a life coach. So,
Right.
what's one principle that you teach people that has helped your clients the most to have better relationships?
Right. So because I have such a varied um group of people that I coach, I don't know that there's one principle that I'm thinking service, obviously, I guess that it would be the one thing that I constantly teach is, I really feel like service of each other can be the most important thing we can do. One person I was coaching, this this was a while back, but um, she and her husband were going to get a divorce, and she's like, "I just don't know." Excuse me. I don't know what to do. I just feel like we're so disconnected. And she said, "I feel like I'm doing more than 50% of the family activities and just the things that the family needed." And I said, and what I told her was that we aren't to give a 50%. It's not a you give 50%, I give 50%. We're each supposed to give 100%. We
Hmm.
give 100% of who we are into our marriage. And within a week, she came back and she said, my marriage has completely turned around.
Wow.
And that was a testimony to me that we our marriages, we need to give all we can, and that is through service. So
Hmm.
I had suggested that she serve her husband. Yeah, they may be getting a divorce, but you serve him. And that it's been really fun to watch their relationship develop and to something that she didn't think was possible. And they are no longer on terms of divorce. It is that's not
Wow.
even so. I think that service is probably my number one thing that I would recommend.
I love that. So, what are some common patterns or challenges that you see in clients today?
They are overscheduled. They have too many things going on. They don't have time to just sit and be still or sit and just have a conversation with their spouse or their loved one or um, their even their boss or whoever they have that they need. Yeah, I think as a society in America, just need to have more downtime.
I agree. It's been actually something that's been the topic of conversation for me a lot with a lot of different people. Just the importance of taking time to reflect. And an example that keeps coming back to my mind is 100 years ago, people were working with their hands all day long, and
Right?
there weren't earbuds to put in to listen to something else.
Yeah.
And they just had a lot of time to think and to ponder. And we wonder why there's so many mental health challenges today. There's no time to process emotion unless you make deliberate time and space for that. And so it's been something that I've been trying to be more deliberate about of just even just like getting in my car and not turning on music. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a strange thing to do. People always have something on the radio, but we have to
Right.
be deliberate with what we're inputting into our system and not inputting deliberately.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned 100 years ago, they'd go out and sit on the porch and just chat in the evenings.
Mhm,
And when we lived in the South, and that was something that some people still did, which was refreshing.
mhm,
But you don't see that in most of the country.
yeah,
And I think that just sitting down and having a conversation is becoming uh, it a thing of the past, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, between
Yeah.
TV and, you know, media of any kind, I just don't think we have enough time that we're spending together.
Yeah, agreed. So how do you help your clients break free from some of these old habits or generational patterns?
So one of the things that I find is really important is if you add something new, you try something new, then it changes you. And so just having I just recommend that they learn something new, that they just morph their way of doing things that day a little bit, because it's going to
Mm,
change them.
right.
You could take a different route to work. You can um, decide to read a book instead of watch TV or whatever it is. You can learn a different skill, take a college course, do something, and it's going to change how you show up.
Yeah.
And then that changes everyone around you in some way. They either choose to go with you on that journey, or they kind of drop away as a natural process of you outgrowing them. I think that that's the one of the best ways. The second thing that I would suggest is find someone you absolutely admire and how they're doing it, and then try to show up that same way. When I was a young mother, I had 3 little kids. They were all 3 and under. So I was
Busy times.
very overwhelmed. And because I was adopted and had a past that wasn't great, and I hadn't had a lot of mothering examples, then I chose my beautiful friend, Dana. She, I loved how she took care of her kids. I loved how she showed up for her kids. And so I tried to be just like her. She would read books to her kids, and she would read them in kind of a sing-song way, which a lot of people do now. But at the time when I was a young mother, that wasn't a thing. And so I started doing that. And I started showing up as I thought Dana would show up.
Mm,
It it didn't make me a perfect mom. I am absolutely not a perfect mom, but it made me a better mom.
yeah.
And I still am such good friends with Dana, and absolutely love her, and I love how she showed up for her family, and so
Mm,
that was a blessing for me, and so I actually suggest that for other people also.
I love that. I do think that there's something really powerful about being able to see something in action and replicating it, that it makes it more believable that it's possible to achieve. And so I really love that visual of, okay, who do I want to be like? Now, what are
Right.
they doing to be that way?
Yeah, and what if they changed, or what if they did? What do I see different in them than I'm doing?
Hmm.
Because, maybe I don't like, I don't know, how I'm doing something, and then finding that, okay, this is working for them. It's a great example of how to do things. And we use the Lord in that a lot. But,
Yeah.
Dana was my first experience in trying to do that. But we try to use the Lord and emulate the way he would do it.
Hmm.
And obviously he's perfect. So that's the best way to do it. But sometimes you need a real life person to look at
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
person
I
that's
love
still on
that.
this earth that
Yeah.
you can see.
Yeah. I love that. You've shared a few different examples, but is there a success story that you would like to share that really encouraged you in your life coaching?
Yes. So, um, there was a coaching session, and it was a young man. He was in a loop that we call a persuasive loop. It's an autistic loop that people can get into. And he was in this very strong loop that he wasn't able to get out of. And he couldn't see, it didn't seem that he could see that he was in a loop,
Mm.
but he was. And through coaching, I was able to see him get out of that loop and find his way to where he wanted to be. And I love
Mm.
that because sometimes when we get in those loops, anyone gets in those loops, but particularly as a person with autism, it's so hard to get out of it. And
Mhm.
so it was just beautiful to watch him be able to work his way out of the loop that he was just stuck in. I just loved watching him do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, with that, what tools or frameworks do you use in your coaching sessions to help people process, help people get out of loops, to help
Right.
people become better individuals?
Well, they are absolutely the person in charge. And so giving them the permission to be in charge of their life, I think is a really helpful thing. Um, so oftentimes using visualizations that can come and play into it, just get them to do a micro commitment because sometimes they get in the stuck in a failure loop that
Mm.
they don't feel like they can do anything. Like, I have no ability to do anything. And then having them actually finish a micro commitment, it's just a little tiny commitment, but to finish it, then they get a sense of accomplishment and then they're willing to make more and continue on that process to become better. And so I really
Mm.
love micro commitments.
That's beautiful. I love that. Catherine, do you have a go-to visualization, question, or exercise that you like to use to help clients get unstuck?
Hmm. I definitely want them to feel like it's a safe space. So I try really hard to go with what they are okay with, which is not necessarily the same for everyone. So
Right.
I kind of don't have a go-to visualization. I ask them if they're okay closing their eyes. If they're not, I that's fine. If they are, then um I try to get them to their breathing regulated because oftentimes they're just so nervous and, or uptight or, and so I try to get them to regulate their breathing in some form or manner. And then try to take them to a place that's their most favorite place to be. Mine is my garden.
Mm.
So for me, it would be going to a garden, or some people it's a beach. Sometimes it's a library. Like it just depends on the person. And so I just let them guide where we are
Mm.
if they can close their eyes. And then we just go from there and we try to invite somebody that's wise in their life, Christ or a family member, and sometimes it's themselves just 5
Mm.
years later or 10 years later that they can be their own advocate. And yeah, so it really I don't have one, I'm sorry, but it
No,
just
that's okay.
changes according to who I'm with.
I love that. I think that's really important to be able to help people where they're at, meet them where they're at, and do something that they're more or less comfortable with. I guess I like to invite people to maybe experiment outside of their comfort zone with different things. But like you said, if they're not okay with, for example, closing their eyes, then that's not something that we have to push on people. So I think
Right.
that that's really beautiful that you give people options to maybe try different things, but that you're not pushing something that somebody's not comfortable with on them. So I think that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's their session. I don't want it to be my agenda.
Mhm.
It's not about me.
So you've mentioned micro commitments and service and gratitude. Is there any additional steps that you use to help people create action plans from what they're learning with you?
In general, I try to have them do the action plan.
Mhm.
It I don't do it for them. Um, Oftentimes they will choose something that I either had not ever thought of, or they will choose something that I wouldn't have thought would work. And
Mm,
so again, it isn't about me. It's whatever they think will work in their lives because they're the expert in their lives. And I only
yeah.
see what they show me. But they're often overwhelmed. So I try to keep it really um, to a micro amount. Although sometimes people surprise me and come up with these huge things that I'm like, that is not a micro commitment.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? But it is their thing. And those people usually fulfill that. Or they'll come back and they'll say, that may have been too much. And then we break it down into a smaller commitment.
Yeah.
I worked on it, but I couldn't finish it. Okay, let's make it a little bit littler, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes they will do these huge things that I'm like, more power to you. Good for you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is what they want.
I
And then I
love that.
check with them about halfway between our sessions how it's
Mhm.
going. And
I love
sometimes
that.
our sessions are weekly and some are biweekly. It just depends on the person. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I just check in with them. Or they check in with me depending on the client. I like it when they check in with me, but if they don't, I'll check in with them.
That's awesome. So what encouragement would you give someone or offer to someone who is struggling right now? Maybe our listeners are hearing
Right.
all these good things you have to say, but what is something that either they could do today or what encouragement would you give them?
Take one step, just one. You're still going in the right direction. If you
Yeah.
take one step today and one step tomorrow, I mean, you've got 365 steps that you've taken in this year.
Yeah.
One step. I find life to be kind of like an escalator, which I know sounds weird, but we are going up the down escalator. That is,
Mm,
and if we stop, we are at the bottom.
yeah.
But if we keep going, eventually, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, we will get to the top. And so that's really the thing. We just need to take one step. And
Mm,
that helps me personally with my business. I thought I was going to do it in a very specific order, and I kind of got stuck. And
mm,
then I was like, "Well, I'll do this first, and then that'll make this, and this easier." So I actually flipped around my list and started at the end and worked my way backwards.
mm,
I mean, I'm still working my way backwards, but I mean, but it was, I'm no longer stuck. I'm moving forward. And now some of my clients find it easiest to do something that they enjoy first. And then they see that sense of accomplishment and that then they're able to continue on.
mm.
Personally, I like to do the things that are hardest the first. And then I know that it's just fun after that.
Yeah.
And so all I have left is the fun things.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how I did my bachelor's degree. I did my 400 classes first, and I
Wow.
have no electives left. I know it, and I know I'm different than most people on that. But sometimes you just got to flip it around to make it something different, but
Mm.
still the same things to make it work. But just one step, just take one step.
I love that. So what does Christ-centered mean to you, Catherine, in the context of coaching?
Having a space where Christ is welcome, in whatever capacity my clients have for Christ. I have one person that calls Christ the universe, and I'm fine with that. And I have a client that believes in Christ but is not religious. He does not go to church. And I have clients that are the same religion as I am. Um, whatever capacity they have for Christ is the way that I want to be able to show up and be there for them, because I am there for them and helping Christ be in their life. And wherever they are, I try to meet them wherever they are.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Kathryn. Is there a next step you'd invite our listeners to take today? Maybe a micro commitment? I know you talked about taking a next step, but is there anything additional you would add to that?
I think that if if the person that's listening was my client, I would want them to feel Christ's love for them, because they are his child. Finding him in their life, just looking for the goodness in their life, looking for those things that they can be thankful for. Um, that's probably the thing that would help them the most without having a session and seeing what they need. But
Yeah.
that's probably my favorite thing for them. It's just showing up.
Well, thank you so much, Kathryn, for all of your thoughts and the spirit that you've brought to this interview today. I really appreciate your time and your talents and you being willing to share that with us today. Before we wrap this up, I do want to make sure that our listeners know how they can connect with you or learn more about your coaching. So, where's the best place to connect with you, Kathryn?
So I have Beacon of Hope Life Coaching at gmail.com is my email, or beacon and then underscore hope underscore life coaching on Instagram. Those are
Perfect.
probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much again for your time. I hope that whoever has been listening and has a desire to reach out to you will have the courage to do so that they can start seeing some of these changes that you've been talking about and invite Christ into their life a little bit more. So, thank you so much, Kathryn.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
your time.
Katie.
I know you have felt something today while you've been here, and I would like to invite you to act on what you felt, to not let this just be one more inspirational moment, but to now take decisive action. To choose some little micro commitment that you can take that's going to move your life towards the person that you want to be, a closer relationship with Christ, and the person that He needs you to be for Him. So before you are done, just take a deep breath and think, what's one little thing that I want to commit to? And at Christ-Centered Coaches, if you want coaches to hold you accountable, that's what we're here to do in every way, from just listening and being a part of our community to going ahead and hiring a coach and even becoming a life coach yourself. We're here to support you every step of your journey as you move from where you are to where Christ needs you to be.